Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Hawks Latest, your number one source for news, updates, rumors, opinions, and you guessed it, the latest and the greatest regarding the Atlanta Hawks. I'm your host, Zach Langley, aka Langley ATL. Today, we've got a full slate of updates to break down for you. This is the 165th episode of Hawks Latest, presented by FanArt, so hopefully you guys have been enjoying the ride. I know I have, and like I said, we got a lot to break down today, so before this video gets started, if you guys go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe, it would be very much appreciated. It would go a very long way, and a huge thank you to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring today's video. Sign up for Underdog using that QR code right up there in that corner. You don't want to miss out on potentially winning some bucks. So, we got a full breakdown today of another difficult outing for the Atlanta Hawks. It's been a rough time to be a Hawks fan and to be covering the Hawks. Because when they had such a great start to the post-Trae Young era, the Jalen Johnson era, but it has really cooled down, and this has not been a fun stretch of basketball. They've actually lost 3 straight games, and this time, the last one was to the hands of the Boston Celtics. Just definitely the team we want to play in the midst of a losing streak. Yeah, they extended it all right. It's not too much of a losing streak, but it is deflating nonetheless. So we'll go inside what quickly, turned into a lopsided defeat at State Farm Arena in the first home game since the Trae Young trade. We'll highlight the individual performances that really defined the night on Boston's side and on Atlanta's side, because they certainly were defined by some impressive and some not so impressive individual performances. And then after that, we're going to take a broader look at really where this team stands as it continues to adjust to major roster changes, because they've probably had the most major roster changes in the NBA if we are combining this past offseason and then also through the season. I don't even think it's close. The Hawks look completely different than they looked at this point last year. From there, we'll shift gears and discuss a roster move that was made behind the scenes. It didn't get a whole lot of national hype. He wasn't available for this last game, but you all should know who I'm talking about. If you don't, I'm talking about Christian Koloko. The Hawks signed that center to a 2-way contract just the other day, just before the loss to the Boston Celtics, which kind of overshadowed what potentially could end up being a pretty meaningful signing. We'll talk about why this move matters in both the short term and the long term, what Koloko brings to the table, and how he could factor into Atlanta's front court plans moving forward, because this team's unpredictable, man. There's a lot to consider here. Finally, before our viewer comment section, towards the end of today's video, we will preview the Hawks' upcoming matchup. Today, it's MLK Day, and the Hawks play pretty early today, just a couple hours after this video is actually put out. So hopefully you guys will go from this video to, you get like a little bit of an hour break, and then you got to watch some Hawks basketball. So hopefully it's going to be a win. But today, the Hawks play the Milwaukee Bucks. It's a meaningful game in the standings, considering what the Hawks have, how they're tied to the Bucks, just in the now, and so we all know what I'm talking about. We own their pick, but it's the swap between the Pelicans. But regardless, this should be a good game, because it is 2 struggling teams that are trying to stabilize their season, so there's a lot at stake. So I know that was a lot, so let's go ahead and waste no more time and jump right into it and start with what happened Saturday night in Atlanta at State Farm Arena on our home floor. The Atlanta Hawks were just completely, the best way to really put it is that they were overwhelmed by the Boston Celtics. They were dominated. They were decimated. It was from start to finish. It was a lopsided game. And so they fell 132 to 106 in a game that slipped away in historic fashion during the second quarter. There's really no other way to put it. Like I said, this was a full beatdown. And then Snyder noted post-game, he was like, tonight we were bad. And, you don't see him fully admit that too much. But they were bad. They were just getting destroyed on the ball, off the ball, on defense. Boston was cutting. Boston was moving around, getting wide open threes. Sam Hauser took 21 threes. We allowed a hot shooter to keep shooting. That's a great game plan. That's great coaching right there. That's great defensive. That's a great defensive identity that they're really building without Trae Young, guys. Clearly he was the only problem, because his defense is so spectacular without him. Regardless, Jaylen Brown, the Marietta native, just 30 minutes outside of Atlanta, he delivered an absolutely dominant performance. He finished that matchup with 41 points, while Sam Hauser, like I said, he sparked a massive 3-point, absolute avalanche, and it completely flipped the game on its head. What began as a little bit competitive, the Hawks really kind of stuck in there with them, for the first quarter. It quickly turned into a runaway once Boston started to catch fire from the field, because, per usual, the Hawks didn't make any sort of defensive adjustments, and it allowed Boston to just continue what was working. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, and they didn't have to fix it because Atlanta didn't try to fix it on their end, which it needed to be fixed on their end. Just a frustrating game. I was in the media section, and where I'm at, I was in a row full of Celtics media. And I was like one of the few Hawks writers there in the section, so that was great. That was awesome. I mean, you could tell like the difference between the two franchises. I mean, the Celtics writers were just like chopping it up, not really paying a whole lot of attention to the game because they knew they had us. Like, I mean, it was an uneven game early. They knew they didn't have to pay too much attention because hey, they were killing us. And so yeah, I was just kind of sitting there. I was like, dang, this is a great way to spend my Saturday night just watching the Atlanta Hawks just get absolutely dominated on both ends of the floor. I wouldn't trade it for the world. I love what I do. The Celtics erupted for. Actually, I'm not even going to say it yet. In the second quarter alone, I just want you guys to guess how many points they had. Maybe put it in the comments below, because it's a ridiculous number. In the second quarter alone, which was where the game completely flipped on its back, the Celtics scored 52 points. 52 points in one quarter. The Hawks did not put up 52 points in the first half. The Celtics had a better second quarter than the Hawks had an entire half. Just unbelievable. And most of it was due. Like, they were obviously making some shots that maybe they shouldn't have been making, but most of their shots were open. This was a full defensive mental lapse. And I'm sure you guys, if you guys watch the game, I'm sure you guys can fully agree with me there. They stretched the score to an 82-51 halftime lead and effectively ended the contest before the break. There wasn't a lot of momentum or really any sort of motivation to even play that third quarter. Boston barely missed during that second quarter stretch. They knocked down 19 of their 25 shots from the field, including an eye-popping 11 of 15 from beyond the arc. And it was really Sam Hauser and Jaylen Brown who got it done for Boston, although it was a full team effort. Also, Anthony Simons, who was hitting step-back threes and looking like prime James Harden out there. He's actually been a really sneaky good addition for the Celtics. They traded for him this past offseason, sending Drew Holiday to the Blazers in exchange for Simons. That was a really under-the-radar move. And credit to Brad Stevens, who just continues to be an excellent GM, improving around the margins, getting a chip, and then understanding that the second apron is about to kick their butts. So then they made all the moves to shed some salary this offseason while still remaining competitive while Jason Tatum is out. Like, it's bravo. I mean, you know what? Like, I can't hate on it. I can't sit here and be upset about it. Like, they're doing things correctly. They're managing their organization how it should be managed. And so also Hauser in that second quarter, he hit all 6 of his attempts from beyond the arc. He was 6 for 6. That is no typo. That is not me, just saying it wrong. Like, he was making all of his attempts from beyond the arc, and Jaylen Brown really just controlled the game, both on the perimeter and at attacking the rim. He was shooting well from 3, but he was also getting to all of his spots, whether that was in the mid-range or backing down a mismatch and then hitting like a decently tough fadeaway, like closer to the basket, or just straight up just getting in an isolation situation and just completely blowing by whoever was on him. It was Jalen Johnson defending him for most of the game, and while he started off kind of doing well, like Jaylen Brown was kind of shot chucking in the beginning, that was not able to persist over the course of the game, and it led to him having obviously a 40 bomb in 3 quarters. By the way, he did not play any minutes in the fourth quarter, which obviously he shouldn't, because the Celtics were up by like 30 entering the final quarter. Actually, I think they were up like 40 entering the final quarter, which is just even more ridiculous. And so, yeah, that pretty much sums up the game that happened on Saturday night. By halftime, Brown already had 29 points and Hauser had 21. Just unreal. Together, the two nearly outscored the entire Hawks roster through 2 quarters. Boston reached triple digits well before the midpoint of the third quarter, and they extended their lead to as many as 43 points before both teams eventually emptied their benches. And for some reason, Quinn Snyder took forever to even empty the bench. Usually if at the start of the fourth quarter, if you're down by over 40 points, you might bench your star player and some of your better players in the starting lineup. But no, Quinn waited until like there was like 4.5 minutes left in the game to empty the bench and get Jalen Johnson out of there. I disagreed with that. I think most of Hawks media disagreed with that. I think you all probably disagreed with that. Just not a very calculated decision there. Maybe Quinn wanted Jalen to work out of his, slump and get some baskets against like the weaker Boston competition, that they're the bench guys. Like, I agree with that, like the philosophy of that, but also like if Jalen had gotten hurt, then there was no reason to have him in. Now, he obviously didn't get hurt and so forth, and we're very glad that he did not. It has not been a good stretch of play for Jalen Johnson. He has been pretty bad on both ends of the floor, and now 3 consecutive games. That's not good. That's not a good way to start the era where you are supposedly the face of the franchise. I'm being brutally honest with Jalen right now because I see how good Jalen can be. And obviously this is his first real action as a number one option. He's been the number one option all season, but with Trae Young off the roster, it is officially his team now. He needs to step it up. I mean, if the Hawks want to have any chance of remaining any bit competitive with some of these quality Eastern Conference teams, and don't even get me started on the Western Conference teams, they need Jalen Johnson to play like a star. In these past 3 games, he has not, and that's why I did that whole segment a few episodes ago, where I just talked about how the team is becoming a little too reliant on Jalen Johnson having a spectacular performance in order to get a win. This game against the Celtics was another prime example of that. I mean, Jalen was off, and so was the rest of the team. And so, also the Hawks are integrating some new guys like CJ McCollum and Corey Kispert, and so that has definitely not done good things to the defense and also overall chemistry of this team. But you still just cannot have performances like that. The Hawks need Jalen Johnson to be better. And at the end of this game, Sam Hauser, bringing it back to him, he had a season best 30 points, tying his career high with 10 made 3-pointers. They honestly left him in the game for a little too long because they were trying to get him to, I think, break Klay Thompson's record, which honestly I can respect. You're that close to a record for most 3-point makes in a game. Like, why not just let him stay out there and chuck up a bunch of shots? And then Brown's 41-point performance was a reminder of his all-NBA caliber impact, especially against the Atlanta Hawks defense that struggled to contain all of his offensive action. Also, bringing it back to Anthony Simons, he contributed with 14 points. While that's not like super impressive, he really was the catalyst for that second quarter run. He knocked down 4 of his 8 3-point attempts. And Boston's supporting cast just continued to pile on and pile on and piled on. So yes, this was the 3rd straight defeat for the Atlanta Hawks, coming on the heels of a West Coast trip and, the blockbuster trade that sent franchise guard Trae Young to the Washington Wizards. But yeah, this is still an adjustment period. This is still, honestly, I guess now it's just an adjustment season. And so it continues to show. That continues to be prevalent, and particularly against better teams like Boston, who has just been so resilient and just they're so well coached and they play together, and it's going to be really scary when Jason Tatum comes back in probably like a few weeks. If they stay playing at this level of ball when Tatum is back, like, they're probably the Eastern Conference favorites, and I don't even think it's particularly close. Onyeka Okongwu led the Hawks in this game with 21 points. He was one of the few bright spots on an otherwise rough shooting night for Atlanta. Onyeka has had a great stretch of games, but also, Onyeka, great offensive games for him also come with, him not being too great on the defensive end due to him being undersized. So there's pros and cons of Onyeka being such a focal point in the offense. And so I want to hear your thoughts on that down below. I mean, he was good. He's been playing good basketball, but he can't be their best offensive player. I mean, that's just not a recipe for success. That's not a way an NBA team is going to win with Okongwu as your star, as your best offensive player for a consistent stretch. Like, it's not sustainable. Atlanta shot just 37% from the field, going 38 of 102 overall, and they struggled to generate consistent offense once Boston tightened up defensively, which was as early as like the end of the first quarter. The combination of poor shooting, defensive breakdowns, and Boston's just overall relentless ball movement made this one of the Hawks' most difficult losses of the season, and it was a really deflating one being there in person. So now, moving on from the Hawks' embarrassing loss to the Celtics, because we got to talk about some roster changes, some roster moves. The Hawks, general manager Anzi Saleh has kind of made it a thing to just not be complacent and to always be evaluating the options just as much as you can. It's a good philosophy, and during the season, like, having that mentality, like, not changing, like, that does make teams take you very seriously in trade negotiations, and also makes free agents really consider going here, because it shows that you are willing to do what it takes to win now and win in the future. So he just continues to explore ways to strengthen the roster. And so late Friday afternoon, the night before the game against the Celtics, the Hawks had actually announced that they had signed center Christian Koloko to a 2-way contract. Atlanta had 2 open 2-way spots available and elected to use one of them on a player who could potentially carve out a meaningful role sooner rather than later. I'm not saying Christian Koloko, once he's inserted into the lineup, is going to play like 20, 25 minutes a night. I'm not saying all that. Although he's proven that he can kind of do that, not at a super high level, but he has played some good NBA minutes before, and he is still pretty young. So maybe the Hawks have a little bit of a gem here. what was I saying? Oh yeah, so when those two roster spots for Atlanta, the two-way spots, they opened. There was understandable concern among Hawks fans about what would happen if the team were forced to rely on the very end of their rotation, because we've had quite the season for our two-way contracts, because they went into the season with their two-way contracts being Caleb Houston, Ellie Njai, and Jacob Toppin. And Jacob Toppin suffered a season-ending injury, and they waived him. And then Ellie Njai suffered a season-ending injury, and they waived him. Also, if we're talking about just end-of-rotation guys, we're not talking about a two-way guy here. Nafali Dante is on a standard NBA contract. He was supposed to be Atlanta's third center that they put in emergency situations. He tore his ACL, and he's out for the season. So just more depth and injury concerns persisting for Atlanta. I mean, it's no surprise. It has been a thing with this organization for quite some time, and it is just continuing on now. So, yes, Hawks fans were a little bit concerned about, like, hey, if we're in a dire situation, like if everyone in our starting front court is hurt, like, who are we going to bring in? Like, who is going to be that emergency big man or emergency forward? Because, all of our two-way guys are getting hurt. I mean, they signed Ray J. Dennis to one of their two-way spots. And, yeah, like, there's not a lot of optimism there. But this is changing a little bit now with this new signing. Christian Koloko is going to be pretty solid in the future, and he's pretty okay now. He's pretty solid. He kind of fills a role that the Hawks need a little bit. And yeah, injuries are never guaranteed, but they are inevitable over the course of an NBA season. And Atlanta clearly does want to be prepared if they find themselves thin at the center position, which they have been thin at the center position all year. There's ongoing availability concerns surrounding Kristaps Porzingis, and also lingering questions about Onyeka Okongwu's reliability as a full-time starting center. His defensive inconsistency, especially. The Hawks bringing in Koloko is them bringing in a reliable, experienced, and physically imposing end-of-bench big man. I like the signing. So let's look at what Koloko has done in the NBA so far. So if we're talking about specifically this season, which is obviously very relevant for obvious reasons why, he has appeared in 13 games this season, split actually between two teams. So he's played a total of 13 games, but it has been between two teams, the LA Lakers and the Memphis Grizzlies, where he was able to carve out a decent role in the rotation for both of those teams. In just over 15 minutes per game, he is averaging 2.2 points, 3.5 rebounds, and 1 block. While those numbers aren't going to jump off the page, his ability to impact games defensively, especially in the paint, in limited minutes, does make him a valuable addition. Guys that understand their role and guys that will make the most of their minutes, because in the limited minutes that he's getting and still putting up almost 4 rebounds per game and a whole block per game, like, it's showing that he is an impactful guy who's just not getting significant minutes and not getting the amount of minutes that are necessary to show that in the stat sheet. He was drafted by the Toronto Raptors in the 2022 NBA draft, and so Koloko has played in his NBA career 108 career NBA games, and he started in 21 of them, so he has some starting experience. And hey, he is still very young. The experience alone that he has as a young center makes him somewhat overqualified for a two-way contract. This is probably a guy who should be on a standard NBA contract. So now the Hawks have 2 guys in their two-way slots that should be on standard NBA deals. I think Caleb Houston is a guy who's too good for a two-way contract. He's on a two-way contract with the College Park Cyhawks and the Atlanta Hawks. Same with Christian Koloko. It's the same situation, just 2 guys at 2 different positions, which I think is great work from Anzi Soleil. Koloko's standout skill, just overall, overarching theme to his game, is his rim protection. He has recorded 2 or more blocks in 16 career games, including a memorable performance during his rookie season with the Toronto Raptors, actually, where he slotted a career-high 6 shots in one game it was a win over the Chicago Bulls. So he was able to anchor the Raptors' defense and give them a win, really, over the Bulls. 6 blocks in a game, like that's no accident. Not just anyone can do that. This is a guy with real talent and real potential. Standing at 7 feet tall, Koloko provides the true positional size that many Hawks fans have been clamoring for. A lot of people get very frustrated with Atlanta's guys in the front court who are on the thinner side, and they're also not necessarily as tall as they should be for their position, like Onyeka Okongwu or Mo Gay. Koloko brings very good size. He's 7 feet tall, and his physical makeup is well suited for today's NBA, where verticality and mobility at the center position are increasingly valuable. I like his his game. I like his intangibles. I think this is going to be a little bit of a steal. In the G League, where he is expected to obviously spend the most amount of time with the Atlanta Hawks, with the College Park Skyhawks, which is our G League affiliate, Koloko has been productive. He's averaging 12.7 points, 7.7 rebounds, and an impressive 2.9 blocks per game over his G League career. A proven G League contributor. He's built a reputation in the G League as one of the more effective rim protectors waiting for another extended NBA opportunity. Maybe, just maybe, he can get it here with the Atlanta Hawks. And then also just bringing it back to college, Koloko played 3 seasons at the University of Arizona. He steadily improved every single season with the Arizona Wildcats. Across 91 collegiate performances, he averaged 7.3 points, 5.1 rebounds, and 1.8 blocks in just under 18 minutes per night. So he wasn't a guy with super heavy usage, but it just improved every year. And his development, just added on to what was a standout final season where he earned Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year and Most Improved Player honors. So now in Atlanta, Koloko enters this opportunity with plenty to prove. He's going to have a chip on his shoulder. He's going to have a lot to prove with both the Skyhawks and if he ever gets rotational minutes with the Atlanta Hawks. If Porzingis continues to miss time and the Hawks continue to struggle to protect the paint like they have all season, don't be surprised if Koloko at least gets a little bit of a look, maybe just a few minutes per game in the rotation sooner rather than later. Fast breaks, buzzer beaters, and block parties are back, and Underdog is the best place to get in on all of the action. Playing on Underdog is easy. Just pick whether your favorite players will go higher or lower on stats like points, rebounds, steals, and more. Get your picks right and you could win up to 5,000 times your cash. This week on Underdog, I'm looking at Celtics versus Pistons and selecting Jaylen Brown's higher for points and Duncan Robinson's higher for three-pointers made. Download the app today and use promo code BASKETBALLFAN to score $75 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. That's promo code BASKETBALLFAN. Underdog. Make picks, win money.
Must be 18 plus. 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska. 19 plus in Colorado for some games. 21 plus in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia. And present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/play and get terms DFSTML for details. Offer not valid in Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In New York, call the 24/7 helpline at 1-877-8 or text HOMI 467-369.
I know after that segment about the Hawks versus Celtics game, y'all are probably like, wow, he's all doom and gloom today. And there's a lot of doom and gloom surrounding the franchise. But hey, I'm already back optimistic. It only took me 2 segments to get back optimistic and back on the go Atlanta Hawks train, because guess who's back in action tonight? The Atlanta Hawks take on the Milwaukee Bucks today, actually, not tonight, today. I keep forgetting that this is a day game. I'm going to be at the arena in an hour, so I got to get ready. But on Monday afternoon, the Hawks are taking on the Milwaukee Bucks as part of the NBA's Martin Luther King Jr. Day slate. Both teams entered the matchup on 3-game losing streaks. So we got a matchup of 2 teams that are desperately searching for a W and just searching for any bit of consistency, like literally any consistency they can get, because both teams have been very inconsistent all year. I would say the Milwaukee Bucks are in a more deflating situation than the Hawks. At least we have a little bit of a direction right now. We've traded our star player. We're building for the future while also trying to pick up some wins and for the rest of the season. The Bucks are just remaining directionless. They have Giannis Antetokounmpo in trade rumors. They've denied the trade rumors over and over again, but it feels like the writing is still on the wall there, and so they don't really have a direction right now, and they're getting booed on their home floor, which is not happening with the Hawks. These are 2 different teams in 2 different situations, but they have both lost 3 in a row, so both teams are going to be playing their hearts out today. They should be, at least. I've been kind of expecting better effort from the Hawks in each of these past 3 games, but we did not get that, and so maybe they can flip the script today against the Bucks. Milwaukee last played on Thursday, where they suffered a 119-101 loss to the San Antonio Spurs, which that I can't even put that against them. The Spurs are one of the best teams in the NBA. They're led by Victor Wembanyama. They're playing in the tough Western Conference. They've proven themselves over and over again this season, knocking off the Thunder several times, or the Thunder kryptonite. And so before that loss to San Antonio, they had lost 139-106 to the Minnesota Timberwolves, which is a little bit more unjustifiable. This is all right. Then it starts getting into okay. This just really is not a good team. Those recent results for the Bucks have dropped them to 11th place in the Eastern Conference standings. Definitely way worse than they expected going into the season. I kind of knew the Bucks weren't going to be very good this season, but I didn't expect them to be as bad as they have been so far. But also I didn't expect this team that I'm about to talk about to be as mid or bad as they are. The Atlanta Hawks, meanwhile, are coming off of the 132-106 loss to the Boston Celtics, which was an absolutely lopsided effort. The scoreboard doesn't fully reflect how lopsided of a game that was. They were down 43 points. I don't need to bore you with the details because we did talk about that for like 15 minutes in that first segment. So they have actually dropped their last 3 games by an average of 22.3 points. Despite the skid, the Hawks currently sit above the Milwaukee Bucks. They're 10th in the East. They're just 1.5 games ahead of Milwaukee, so the Hawks need to be careful today because a Milwaukee win is going to just continue to build off of, build Milwaukee back into the standings. And then if the Hawks lose again and the Bucks win again, the Hawks will be out of the play-in race. So we got to be really careful. Because, we joke about the Hawks, okay, maybe we'll be back in the play-in again, but we got to be real careful to not just miss the play-in entirely. I don't think it'll come down to that, but there always is a very good possibility. So what better way to start a win streak and completely flip the script of the momentum on the season than a game against the Milwaukee Bucks on MLK Day at home? This is a great opportunity. Bucks head coach Doc Rivers emphasized patience, downplaying any panic about the team's postseason outlook. He said, I think people on the outside look at more than the players. We've got half a year left. We're only a game or 2 from the play-in, so I don't see that at all with us. And then he said that, and Coach Quinn Snyder also kind of echoed a similar sentiment, stressing growth through adversity. He said, you don't want to get into, and this was post-game just a couple days ago against the Celtics. I was there. He said, you don't want to get into the sky is falling, Snyder said. The adversity is something we've got to use. Formulatically, wow, why did I just completely mess that word up? He said it's a good thing. There are things that we know if we do that we're going to be better. So Atlanta just continues to integrate 2 key newcomers, C.J. McCollum and Corey Kispert, as we all know. And so, Snyder has over and over again acknowledged the fact that it's not going to be easy integrating new guys, in the midst of the season. They obviously arrived in the Trae Young trade, and in 4 games with the Hawks, McCollum is averaging 17 points and 3.8 assists, while Kispert is contributing 10 points per game. Snyder acknowledged the challenges, like I said, of adding new pieces midseason, particularly during a rough stretch. And his exact quote was, "We're integrating a couple new guys on the fly. Usually when you do that, there are stretches like this where things aren't habitual. We have to find that interaction quickly." So the Hawks' losing streak has also, kind of been met with a noticeable offensive dip from Jalen Johnson, as we've talked about earlier. His play recently has not been good. He scored 37 total points over his last 3 games, which is a monumental dip from the production he was putting up, especially in the month of December. His season average is now 22.8. It was at 24 just a couple of days ago. So hopefully he doesn't end up losing his All-Star spot. That would be bad. That would kill a lot of momentum that we built on the season, and particularly for Jalen Johnson, who should be making his first All-Star appearance regardless. Milwaukee continues to be led by Giannis Antetokounmpo, who is in trade rumors, but for right now, he is still a Milwaukee Buck. And on the season, he's still putting up numbers that are generational. He's averaging 28.8 points, 10 rebounds, and 6 assists on the season. Even Giannis, though, struggled in the Bucks' recent loss to the San Antonio Spurs. He finished with 21 points, 5 rebounds, and 1 assist in a game that seriously got out of hand early. Antetokounmpo, after the game, said it was just 2 bad days. We've got to move the ball better and knock down our threes. When you do that, everything changes. So today's game, Monday's game, it marks the 35th time the Hawks have played on MLK Day, second only to the New York Knicks. So Atlanta holds a strong 23-11 record in these MLK Day games. So they have a pretty strong track record of getting wins, for Martin Luther King. And so it's going to be, hopefully they can continue on that trend today. It's also going to be the first of 3 matchups between the Hawks and Bucks this season after Atlanta won 3 of their 5 matchups last year. So we won the season series last year. Let's go ahead and win the season series again. I think that would be a great way to kind of flip the page on what has been a rough season so far. So now into our 4th and final segment, we gotta talk about some viewer comments. This gives you guys a chance for your voice to be heard. I've had a great time doing the whole viewer comment section so far. I've really enjoyed it. Letting you guys share your bold takes, your opinions with me, and then it gives me a chance to respond to you because I see all the comments, but I don't get a chance to respond to all of them. So what better way to do that than introducing this segment? So let's waste no more time. Let's go ahead and get started with at Destin311 said, "We will continue this roller coaster until we address the center position. I get it, Onyeka had 20 and 10, but his 15 three-point attempts were the same amount of total shots that JJ and Naw had combined. Onzi, you're back on the clock." Yeah, The 15 three-point attempts, that was kind of crazy. I didn't get a full breakdown of that because, that game happened on Friday and we didn't have any weekend videos. But yeah, that was wild. And even in the pregame presser for this last game against the Celtics, Quinn had noted that he actually liked the fact that Onyeka took 15 three-point attempts because he was saying that he wasn't forcing any of them, but he was taking open shots. And so I kind of understand him, but also 15 attempts is a little bit crazy. And so, yeah, we do need to address the center position, though, because while Onyeka has done an adequate job being the starting center and filling into that role with Porzingis being out so often this season, it's clear that Atlanta does need a legitimate enforcer down low. And so, Onyeka maybe can still even start, but if you bring in a guy like Daniel Gafford off the bench or a guy like I'm about to talk about in this next segment, off the bench, just a real enforcer, a guy who's going to be a pick and roll threat, but also just a guy who can kind of just back down defenders and make mismatches pay, but also protect the rim with ease, kind of make people scared to go down low. That's what Porzingis' role really was heading into the season, but once again, he hasn't played. So yeah, no, Onzi is on the clock because he's done a great job so far, but I want to see how he addresses his center position. It's hard to blame a lot on Quinn Snyder right now when he is dealing with what he's dealing with at the center position, because it is a very, very important position in today's NBA specifically. So appreciate the comment. Hope that cleared some things up. At IM/SL4XF said, you think we can trade for Robert Williams? And so I kind of hinted at this and when I was responding to the last question. Robert Williams is actually a very interesting trade target. I haven't thought a lot about him, but he is kind of buried in the depth chart in Portland because Portland obviously has Donovan Clingan, and they have several other bigs. They have, Young Hansen, like guys that all deserve minutes and are all, kind of looking towards like the bigger picture in Portland. Robert Williams is kind of the odd man out. But the thing with Robert Williams is he's also, while he does address a lot of the needs, like, we need rim protection, we need a guy who can finish lobs and also, just be a beast down low. He addresses that, but he does also give us some more inconsistencies. And doesn't really address all of our problems because he's also undersized. He is an undersized big man. He's like 6'8" or 6'9". Like he is Onyeka size. Now he's got some strength on Okongwu, but still it is kind of that same mold. And he's also not a stretch big. He's pretty limited offensively, but he is a very solid shot blocker and he's a much better rim protector than Okongwu. So it's kind of, if you bring him in, you're kind of getting the best of both worlds there. But it is like two undersized centers in your rotation. I don't know if that's very effective, although I will say Williams is on a good contract, a valuable contract. So I would be on board for it. It's just as long as we don't have to give up too much. It's a kind of a situation where it's like, it can't get much worse. So why not bring in Time Lord? I think he's a good player. I think he's an underrated player. I don't know necessarily if he fits exactly what Atlanta's trying to do right now, either in the short term or the long term. But I like him as a player, and so I would totally be on board with it. I appreciate the comment. That is a very interesting idea. Maybe I'll do a full segment on him and his numbers and everything about like a potential trade for him. I'll do a full segment about that in a future episode because I do find that very interesting. So once again, appreciate the comment. At Jeremiah N0130CLY said, 1, CJ doesn't play well with JJ. They may need to stagger. Interesting. He said, 2, if KP is out, why not play Asa? We need the shooting. 3, these have been tough defensive matchups for JJ. He doesn't give consistent effort if he's close to 40 minutes. I'll break down each of these. So 1, CJ doesn't play with JJ. They may need to stagger. Through like 3 games of the sample size that we've seen them playing like significant minutes together, that honestly may be the case. Now, is Quinn going to just fully stagger them? No. He didn't fully stagger Trey and Jalen, like when Trey was here. And that was what everyone was suggesting because he would go so often with having both Trey and JJ, on the bench, which made no sense because it's like, you have those are your 2 best playmakers. Why are they not staggering their minutes? But they did play well together. But yeah, CJ and JJ have not played well together so far. The minutes with both of them on the floor at the same time have not been good. So I would expect Quinn to adjust to that, but also he has shown that he's a little bit reluctant to do that, especially when they are still building chemistry. And I don't think it is enough of a sample size to make too big of a rotation decision. Just kind of let them work it out. But also, yeah, both of them are very poor defenders. So, that's not helping anything. It is kind of like the Trey and Jalen pairing, except like CJ is a much worse offensive player than Trey, and also like he doesn't make up for any of Jalen's inconsistencies or any of his weaknesses. And so responding to your second one, if KP is out, why not play Asa? We need the shooting. I honestly, I'll give you a straight up answer here. Asa has not looked good at the 5 this year. That's just me being completely transparent. Like, Asa has not looked good at the 5. Like, he's had a great rookie season, don't get me wrong. He's been very underrated. He probably deserves more minutes than he gets right now. But in the short amount of minutes that we have played him at the center position, he hasn't looked very good, especially on the defensive end. I mean, those defensive lineups when we've played Jalen at the 4 and Asa at the 5, I mean, the Hawks have been getting absolutely torched. The numbers on those are terrible. So that's why Asa is not playing many minutes at the 5 and why they're only really playing him at the backup 4, because in this short amount of minutes that they have been giving him at the 5, like, the other team has gone on a significant run. Like, it's completely undeniable, and that's why they've kind of resorted to playing Mo at the 5 a little bit more than they originally intended, because the Asa at the 5 minutes have not looked good. And so responding to your third one, they've been tough defensive matchups for JJ. He doesn't give consistent effort if he's close to 40 minutes. Yeah, and that can be attested to several things, because I agree with you. One, when you're having a heavier offensive load, when you're dependent on more offensively, it's just a natural transition that you will become a worse defender, like, naturally. We saw it with DeJounte Murray, and now we're seeing it with Jalen Johnson. And that it's not surprising. It is disappointing, but it's not surprising. But I do think, like, Jalen being your worst defender is kind of a good thing moving forward, because it's like, okay, this guy is still 6'10", and is very much a guy who can defend multiple positions at his best days. And if he's your worst defender, then I feel like you're in a pretty good spot. And so, yeah, like, it's harder to give a consistent 40 minutes of defensive effort, of elite defensive effort, when you are relied on as a team's number one option on offense. Like, you can't expect him to, like, not everyone's LeBron James, like, Jalen's gotten the LeBron comparisons, but at the end of the day, he's not LeBron James. So I don't know. Very interesting stuff. I appreciate the comment. That was a lot to break down. I appreciate it, though. It gives us a lot more to talk about. That's awesome. So that's going to do it for today's episode of Hawks Latest. If you enjoyed today's breakdown, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss a single update here on the channel. We're going to be pumping out videos every single day, keeping you guys informed on the latest and the greatest regarding the Atlanta Hawks. But let me know down below in the comments, what are your thoughts on this Hawks losing streak, and specifically the one loss against the Celtics. Hopefully they can kind of turn the tables with this game tonight. What are your thoughts on Christian Koloko, the new signing, the new two-way guy? I kind of like it. I like the value of him on a two-way contract. And then also, what are your thoughts on the game today against the Bucks? Do you think we can pick up a win against a Giannis-led team on MLK Day? Would be awesome for the momentum on the season. Let me know that all down below. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Zach Langley, aka Langley ATL, and I will see you guys next time.